Welcome everyone to session 2, titled Transportation Tax Benefits. To give you a little background, Missoula in Motion talks to tons of people through our employer outreach program called Momentum, as well as the Way to Go Club. We find that most folks are pretty well versed that choosing to bike, bus, or carpool to work is effective at reducing traffic congestion and improving air quality. We also find that most folks know that choosing those options keeps you healthy. We also find that most folks are pretty in tune to the cost of fuel these days and understand that they can save tons of money by biking, walking, taking the bus, and carpooling. We even find that folks are aware that there are certain tax benefits to choosing those options, either individually or implementing a program in their workplace. But the difference is we find that that's all they know. They don't have a solid background on what those benefits are or really accessible resources to implement those programs. So that's really why we decided to create this session, and that's what we hope to get at in the next 45 minutes or so. I certainly am not a tax professional, which is why I'm thrilled to have two speakers today. They're going to split the session, and if we could hold questions till the end, we'll have a question and answer session. So I'd like to go ahead and introduce the first speaker. We do have one human here today, which we're thrilled about. It's great. It is in person. His name is Pat Boyle. He works for a local accounting firm called Boyle, Devaney, and Meyer. Pat received his master's in accountancy here from the University of Montana and then moved out to Portland, Oregon for a while where he worked for a large accounting firm. While he was there, he focused on auditing and accounting for medium to large corporations with industry experience in construction, manufacturing, and banking. Now at Boyle, Devaney, and Meyer, his practice includes preparation of business and personal income taxes, compiling financial statements, assistance with complex accounting transactions, and general consulting. So Pat's a good friend of mine, and I'm thrilled that he's here to give us a solid background on the transportation fringe benefit, as well as some of the new and exciting language that's come out of the Bicycle Commuter Act. So without further ado, let's welcome Pat Boyle.
Thanks, Chase. Transportation fringe benefits. Basically, fringe benefits are any benefit provided to employees outside of salary. Now, these are taxable for payroll tax purposes unless specifically excluded from the law, which I'm going to talk about the transportation fringe benefits that are specifically excluded from payroll taxes. I'm going to talk about, what the benefit is to the employer, what the benefit is to the employee, the four types, which is commuter highway vehicle, which is van pool or carpool, transit passes, such as, your bus pass, other mass transit, qualified parking, and then new for 2009, bicycle commuting. And then I'm going to briefly just discuss how to set up and what kind of documentation you need for these types of things. So for the benefits for employers, it's tax deductible for the employer, no matter if, for income tax purposes, it's always tax deductible. But for, saving on employment taxes, such as FICA and unemployment, if you follow these certain guidelines, you can save on those. And FICA is going to be your Social Security, which is at 6.2%, or Medicare, which is 1.45%. And then unemployment taxes range based on business, and that can be anywhere from 1% to 6%. Now, it's all small percentages, and per employee, you're not going to save a lot. But when you have 200 employees, and you're providing all these benefits to them, these savings can add up. Minimal documentation requirements. A lot of companies already have this system set up where they just the same as any other expense, they retain a copy of the invoice, a canceled check, the same documentation requirements. You're not going to have to do anything different for this. And then there's deduction limits for the payroll purpose, which I'll talk about. They change for each of the different categories of transportation fringe benefits. Now, tax-free for the employee. This is not something that's going to show up on their W-2. They're not going to have to worry about reporting it to the IRS on their income tax return. You know, you can also, if the employer doesn't want to pay for the whole thing, such as parking, the employee can then choose to do it like a flex plan and have a portion of it withdrawn out of their paycheck to pay for it and save payroll taxes that way. But the only one, the new one, the bicycle commuting does not qualify for pre-tax deduction from your payroll for the employee. So the first one is the commuter highway vehicle. There's some specific rules for this. It has to be a highway vehicle that seats at least 6 adults, including the driver. 80% of the miles has to be for transporting the employees from their residence to work. 50%, it must be 50% occupancy, not including the driver. Limits for this is 120 per month per employee. And the example that I found around in Missoula is Missoula Valley Transit Management Association, which I'm not really familiar with, but what they do is they set up van pools in Ravalli County, Lake County, to ship, you know, people meet in Hamilton and take a van up to work in Missoula. The next one is transit passes. This would be your bus pass, your light rail pass in other cities, or subway passes. Limit is 120 per month, which for Missoula is probably quite a bit. I don't think you have any problems with that. And an example of this would just be providing all your employees with mountain line passes. And, you know, so documentation-wise, you know, all you'd have to do is save the invoice from Mountain Lion, showing the passes, or the canceled check paying for that. The third one is qualified parking. This needs to be on or near your business premises. You know, the limit is 230 per month, which is, again, quite a bit for Missoula, but for other cities, you know, it's probably not enough. An example would be a business located downtown buying their employees parking passes to park in the parking garage or something like that. Something like that. The fourth one is the new one for 2009, bicycle commuting. It has a couple vague rules. You know, substantial use of bicycle to get to work could be anywhere from, you know, I'd say it's greater than 50% of the time you're taking your bike to work. There's no definition on distance, so it could be a block, it could be 20 miles. A specific rule is you can't get any other transportation benefit. So if you're getting this for 1 month, you couldn't get a bus pass, which kind of limits it a little bit, especially in winter months if you're trying to take your bike to work, and some days you might need to take the bus. There's no pre-tax deduction, again, for this from your paycheck. Employees can't subsidize this at all. It has to be all employer provided. I didn't put up on here, but it's $20 a month per employee, so $240 a year. And the best example that I could find, I mean, because it is new, there's a business in town that they say any day that, you know, any employee comes to work and comes to work by any other means other than a single vehicle by themselves, they just mark it on their time card, and then they turn in their time cards at the end of the month. They add those up and they give them $1 a day that they came by some other means of transportation. Now, that probably doesn't qualify under this because it's other forms of transportation, but fringe benefits, the purpose isn't always to save taxes on it. You're providing something else there for your employees to get to work by other means. And finally, just some setup and documentation. Probably the biggest thing that I recommend is a written policy. It's going to be the first thing that the IRS has to look at if they were ever to question anything. It also helps, let the employees know what they can and cannot do, and kind of what the employer can and cannot do. So I recommend just having a written policy of what you will provide reimbursement for and stuff like that. As far as documentation goes, employer paid, same detail as any other expenses, just retain an invoice, canceled check for that. For employee withheld, now this is something that you need to run through payroll, which can get a little bit more complicated, but some businesses already have this set up for flex accounts or health care and stuff like that. It's just simply adding that to it. And then it's the employee that needs to provide the receipts. So that's all I've got.
Thank you very much, Pat, for that, the solid background on those benefits that are out there. We thought we would follow that background with a specific product and maybe a solution to implement getting these into the workplace. And so we have Steve Rawson on the line, and if you can bear with me, I'm just going to untape this microphone. He's actually on the Polycom here as well, calling from Berkeley, California, so we're just going to get this set up real quick. Okay, Steve, are you there?
I am. Hi.
Okay. Can everyone hear Steve? Okay. Can we test that again, Steve?
Sure. Hello. Welcome to Berkeley, California.
Is that better? Okay, great. I think we're good to go now, Steve. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chase. So does everybody see now a presentation up on the board? It's a beautiful beach with a lovely ocean in the back. That's the view from my window. So before I get started, I do want to take a moment and just say thank you to Alex for inviting me to speak. I am so grateful. Anything we can do to improve, the adoption of transit benefits nationwide is so important. And I really wish I could have been there today. Unfortunately, commitments didn't allow that to take place. So yeah, I am calling you from Berkeley, California, where it's a balmy 65 degrees. And I'm definitely not calling in from home in my bathrobe and slippers, just so you know. But I will take a couple of minutes to just sort of reiterate everything that Pat had gone over, maybe give a little bit more detail, and then be happy to take questions. Actually, please feel free to ask questions at any time. One disadvantage about calling in is, of course, that I can't see you guys. I can't tell whether you're actually yawning furiously or struggling to keep up with the pace that I'm leading. So please give me feedback at any point. So the slide you're looking at here has a really nice quote from the Union of Concerned Scientists. They're actually based here in Berkeley. The mode of transportation that you choose has a greater effect on the environment than any other decision you make as a consumer. And that's without question true. We do so many things in the course of our day. We recycle our cans and bottles. We recycle the newspaper. We don't use plastic bottles to transport water around, etc. It's all these things that are very detrimental to the environment. But without question, the most detrimental thing we can do is use a single occupancy vehicle to transport our bodies around. So anything we can do to get people onto public transit is absolutely worthwhile. Now I'll just take a moment and just a few things that may not necessarily apply to Missoula, but will certainly be operative in other parts of the country. I don't know how congestion is for Missoula, but let's be honest, it definitely does take a toll. In some cities, it even makes it harder to recruit employees because people don't want to deal with the horrendous commute getting to and from work. So it definitely has an effect on job satisfaction. It increases turnover and lowers retention of employees. And if an employee shows up at work and they are stressed out, it definitely can hurt productivity as well. And there are other intangible costs that are associated with congestion. You have to maintain, for example, a parking facility. And so there's costs associated with that, including, for example, insurance, maintenance. So these things are hidden, but they're certainly substantial. Now, as of, I believe it was 2001, commuting costs made up 18% of an average household's income. So anything we can do to give employees a break in that regard is absolutely worthwhile. And then last but not least on this slide, the environmental repercussions are enormous. I mean, not only in talk about kind of intangible concepts like global warming, but also simply just having to breathe fumes while you're stuck in traffic. So many, many reasons why we should do everything we can to combat congestion. Well, let's investigate commuter benefits as Pat has started for us. Commuter benefits absolutely work. 86% of employees feel that they're useful. And in many areas, they will see a very substantial reduction in single occupancy vehicles for companies where commuter benefits are provided. In this case, it's approximately 15% of employees will opt to use commuter benefits because they can save money. So that's wonderful. And if you have on your site, your work site, you need parking, for example, for your clients, then that frees up parking. So there's yet another kind of intangible benefit. So just to clarify, and as Pat so well defined, public transit is specific to buses and trains and ferries and light rail and subways and van pools. And I know that van pools are a pretty big component of the means that employees get to and from work in Missoula. So this is really important. We definitely want to alert people to the use of van pools and do anything we can to make it easier for folks to use them. So buses, of course, but van pools as well. Van pools can be quite expensive, so allowing employees to use pre-tax money to pay for it is a great incentive. And just to clarify, since people often will ask, it will not include bridge tolls or fuel for your own vehicle or anything related to your carpool expenses. So if you are commuting with other people, that's wonderful and that's admirable. But unless it's actually a van pool, we can't help you with commuter benefits. So effective this year, the first of this month, there is a new biking benefit, and this is really causing a stir nationwide. Now, the biking benefit was crafted in a little bit of a rush. It was thrown into the big bailout we had in fourth quarter last year, and consequently, it wasn't written especially well. So at the moment, the bike benefit doesn't allow for the pre-tax deduction for employees, which is without question the most popular way to offer commuter benefits. At this time, it's only a employer-paid subsidy. So we are expecting at any time, we actually have lobbyists on Capitol Hill who are kind of keeping us posted. We're expecting that this will be altered in the near future, could be any day, quite honestly, to also include the pre-tax benefit. And that's good because, then people will really have an incentive to take advantage of it, and we'll get more and more folks onto the bikes. And just to reiterate Pat's comment, you are only allowed to do biking independently. You can't do biking plus bus or biking plus parking. And that may change as well, but at the moment that is the case. Okay, so just to reiterate the advantages for employers. Employers save on all payroll taxes. So FICA, state unemployment, state disability, could be quite substantial. It could easily be $115 per year for a transit rider, which is not small change. And it's absolutely more than it would cost you to implement the benefit as an employer. So that's nice. It effectively makes this a cost-neutral benefit if you do it as a pre-tax deduction. And of course, it's always wonderful to be recognized as a green-friendly business, too. Okay, so advantages for employees. employees are going to save on payroll taxes as well as state and federal income taxes. So they could save a substantial amount of money. Now, this may not be the case in Missoula, where your transit costs are substantially lower than, for example, San Francisco. But an individual nevertheless could save a lot of money and as well, we hope, have a more enjoyable, relaxing commute and certainly save gas and wear and tear on their own vehicle. And if you let your auto insurance provider know that you're no longer driving your vehicle to work, you can factor those miles out of your quote and have a lot of lower auto insurance premium. So that's yet another way for this to save employees money. Now, this slide and the one that follows it just illustrate a little bit how the salary increase is less valuable to an employee and more costly to the employer. So in this case, let's say we're giving a $100 salary increase to an employee. The employee, after taxes are taken, is only going to receive about $64. And it will cost the employer approximately $68 to do it after they pay FICA and after they write off the expenses for this salary increase. By contrast, if you give a $100 pre-tax benefit instead of a $100 salary increase, it costs the employer slightly less, and the employee gets the full value. So just to show you again, $68 for the employer, $64 for the employee for the salary increase. By contrast, $60, so less for the employer, and the employee, of course, gets a more substantial benefit. So there's just no reason to not implement this pre-tax benefit for employees. Okay, and as Pat did mention, there are monthly maximums that apply. These typically go up more or less every year. There's a cost of living adjustment. But at the moment, as of January 1st, they are $120 for transit and $230 per month for parking. Now, we offer two ways to offer this to your employees to implement these programs. We have what's called a bulk delivery program for smaller organizations. And I would recommend this program for anyone attending this conference today. This program is, what we would do for this program is we would actually have someone in your organization administer the program, just surveying employees about what they'd like to receive every month. Maybe they need the value of a Mountain Line bus pass every month. In that case, you would order commuter check vouchers, which would be sent to you in bulk, and then distribute those to the employee. And I'll talk more about that in just a moment. The other program is really designed for larger employers with multiple work sites and for whom it would be too burdensome to administer the program. That's called Commuter Check Direct, and this is a home delivery plan. This is a great program because we can actually provide your employees with fare media, with actual bus passes and train tickets and so on. However, for smaller organizations, it simply wouldn't be cost effective. So I would encourage you to look into Commuter Check Office, and you can find information on that at commutercheck.com. Now, with Commuter Check Office, your employees will be able to receive Commuter Check transit vouchers, and they're available in any denomination above 10, and an individual is able to order as many as they need to reach their desired total. And this is a national voucher, so it's absolutely usable in Missoula. Now, you can think of this as if it were, for example, a food stamp. It's a way to transmit cash for a very specific spend, a very specific purchase, and it can only be redeemed for transit. So this is the way to ensure that the pre-tax money goes to the intended purchase, which in this case would be transit of some sort. Now, in order to use commuter checks, you redeem them in advance of travel for a high-value ticket or a monthly pass, wherever you would normally purchase your transit pass. You can even use it in tickets by mail programs. Now, a voucher is good for 13 months, so they don't expire every month, which is great because you can store them up and use them when it's appropriate for you to do so. Maybe your employees are traveling quite a lot, so they don't need to buy public transit every month.
There is one constraint that you should be aware of when using vouchers. You're not allowed to have change back since they potentially are conveying pre-tax money. So if you show up at a Mountain Line store to buy a monthly pass with a $30 voucher, but the monthly pass costs $25, in that case, you would lose change. You're not allowed to have the change back. So with vouchers, you do need to do your homework and purchase the voucher that corresponds precisely to your intended ticket or pass, and then just do a one-for-one exchange. Now, the commuter benefit does include parking. You're certainly not obligated to offer it. It is a little bit counter to the environmental reasons for the commuter benefit in the first place, but it is nice in that it allows for equity for those employees for whom transit just is not a viable option, so that these folks can also save some money by using the pre-tax benefit. It does require a separate deduction code, and it does have that different monthly maximum of $230. Now, to pay for parking, for example, at a commercial lot, you would use a commuter check for parking. And in this case, you would just have your employee tell you the name of the commercial lot or garage where they intend to park. And we will send you, you'll order a voucher in the appropriate denomination that will actually be made out to that parking vendor. So it's great. And, you know, as with vendors in general, the huge advantage is there's no need to store receipts. Now, you could have your employee purchase their parking and provide you with the receipt, at which point you could then reimburse them, effectively transferring pre-tax money to them. But then you're obligated, according to IRS regulations, to store that receipt more or less indefinitely. So by using a voucher, you get away from the need to do that. And that's the reason vouchers are so popular nationwide. Okay, so this program, this benefit is really very flexible. You can do a company-paid subsidy, you can do a pre-tax deduction, or you could do a combination of the two. It is not tied to open enrollment, so you could absolutely begin or end your participation or suspend it at any time. There are no plan documents to file, as Pat mentioned, and there's no non-discrimination clause, so you can offer it to just those work sites or just those employee groups you choose to offer it to. Now, if you do go with our program, we do have customer service available to you live in the hours mentioned here, and you can also, of course, just send us an email if you'd like. Now, the cost for this program is 3.5% of the face value purchased. So if an individual needed, let's say, $100 in vouchers for a month of transit, it would cost 3.5%, or $3.50. There is a shipping charge of $15 per bulk order, but you can minimize that by ordering multiple months worth of vouchers at a time. There is no implementation fee, there is no yearly renewal fee or charge, and any fees you spend on this are fully deductible as a business expense. Now, just to summarize the benefits to your organization, clearly, if it's offered as a pre-tax, you're going to save a lot in lowered company payroll taxes. But in addition, there's a number of really intangible but extremely important benefits as far as enhancing recruitment, enhancing retention, lowering absenteeism, and improving morale. So you really can't put a price on those things. Now let's talk a little bit about the environmental impact. Let's say in the entire city, if we got 500 employees in Missoula to use transit as a result of their various companies offering a pre-tax benefit or a commuter benefit of some sort, we would save 180,000 gallons of gasoline per year, which is about 3.5 million pounds of carbon that would not be released into the atmosphere. That's equivalent to over 40,000 trees having grown for 10 years, or the amount of carbon sequestered in 360 acres of forest, or equivalent to 546 tons of waste recycled instead of landfilled. So you can see that's just the effect of 500 folks. You know, nationwide, of course, we're having thousands of people get involved with this type of benefit. So you can really see that the advantages from an environmental standpoint are extremely significant. This is just a little bit of information about who we are. We are the leading provider of commuter benefits in the U.S. We help all sorts of companies across the nation. We really want to just make sure that everyone gets the opportunity to do commuter benefits for the financial advantages, of course, save money, but also because we just have to be proactive and do what we can as far as diminishing greenhouse gas emissions. And we have been around since the pre-tax benefit was, or since the commuter benefit was initiated by Congress back in 1992. So currently, I think we're up to 11,000 employers served, and I think that number is actually slightly higher for employees. I think we're closer to 400,000 employees served in cities across the country. So that is my presentation. I would love to hear from anyone. If you would ever feel like you have questions about this and you want to just take down my email or my phone number, please do. I would be happy to answer questions and just serve as a resource for commuter benefits broadly speaking, and certainly for any of our products as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. That was a great presentation, and it sounds like you guys have created a really easy to implement product that helps us all encourage sustainable transportation. Thanks for presenting that to us. I'll, at this time, open the floor up to questions. Does anyone have any questions for either Pat or Steve? We'll do like we did in the first session. If you could just come up to the microphone, Patricia, and ask your question so I can, if it's for Steve, I can easily put it back on the... Thank you.
Well, this is a question for Steve. Toward the beginning of your presentation, you said that you can't bike and transit both, for instance. You have to choose one or the other. I take it you mean you can't claim both benefits, but you could actually ride your bike in the same month that you take a bus, and you could claim one or the other benefit?
Thank you for that question. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Apologies, I should have been a little clearer. Yeah, you can only claim one or the other. Of course, you're absolutely, you know, here in San Francisco, the biking benefit has really created a big stir because a lot of people will bike to the local subway system and actually bring their bike on the subway. And that's not, you can certainly do that, but you can't claim both benefits, and so that's created a small uproar because it doesn't make sense for people's commute to claim one or the other since they're doing both. But you're absolutely right, you can only claim one or the other at this time. And I think you'll see over the course of probably 2009, that will be adjusted. I do believe you'll be able to claim both. It's not really in the spirit of the legislation of the commuter benefit to exclude an individual from doing one or the other, and the other.
Any other questions?
For Pat, how does that Bicycle Commuter Act define substantial use of the bike? Running, 3 days a week or more?
The question was, how does it define substantial? I didn't find anything that defined that. It's just one of those terms. I would assume greater than 50%, probably more than that, but that's what I'd go off of. I don't know if Steve saw anything.
Steve, did you hear that question?
I apologize, I could not hear it.
Okay, the question was in the bicycle commuter benefit language. It says, what was the exact language, Derek? I'm sorry. Substantial use of bicycle for commuting. Is there any number attached to that to clear that up?
Oh, that's a great question. No, at this time there is not. I mean, most people involved with commuter benefits, when you talk about this benefit, the biking, typically they'll say 50% or more of your time. But quite honestly, that is not defined at this point. And so I do think that you're safe, assuming 50%. It may be defined in the future. We'll have to see.
Yes. Is this question for Steve or for Pat? Okay, great.
If the $20 bike not a pre-tax benefit, how is the employer giving it to the employee?
Okay, the question is, well, if the bicycle is not pre-tax, the employee can't take it pre-tax out of their paycheck. The employer has to provide it, and it's pre-tax at that point for the employee. So if the employer provides it, if the employer provides it, the employee is not taxed on it. So it is pre-tax.
What is the employer doing? I'm not clear on the transaction.
So if the person bikes substantially to work, a substantial amount of the time to work, the employer could provide $20 a month to help pay for maintenance, the purchase of the bike, that type of stuff. That is pre-tax to the employee. So they receive it. It's not going to show up on their W-2. It's not going to be on their income tax return. It's not subject to payroll taxes.
So I'm writing a check to the employee?
For $20 a month, yes.
Okay.
To help them pay for maintenance and other costs associated with the bike.
But it's an excluded fringe benefit then? There's an IRS code that...
Yes, it's excluded fringe benefit, yes. But what I said earlier was that the employee couldn't choose to deduct that from their check personally, such as your health insurance or flex account. You can't do that with the bicycle piece.
Hey Steve, thank you for joining us from Berkeley. So I think this question maybe follows up from the last woman's. I don't know, I work here at the university and I would love to educate people about this opportunity to get reimbursed up to $20 a month. It doesn't seem like there's any incentive at this point with the bicycle commuter tax credit for the employer to provide the $20. And I'm wondering, are they required by law to reimburse if we provide a canceled check and an invoice for our expenses? And how we might get this going. Additional question is if you have any example written policies that Pat talked about that would be needed to get this going.
So maybe we'll start with Steve. Steve, can you address that question?
Chase, I apologize. I was not able to hear it.
Okay. I'm sorry. It's Nikki, is that correct? Yeah. Could you maybe try one more time? Steve, I'm just going to turn the volume up a little bit. Yeah.
Where is he actually hearing?
He's right in here.
Oh, talk right there.
Yeah.
Hey,
Sorry, folks.
Steve, can you hear me?
Hi, thanks.
Is that fine?
Oh, that's fantastic.
Okay. So the question I had was, at this point, because the employer can't provide this $20 pre-tax to employees, I'm wondering what the incentive is for them to provide this, and is at this point, can an employer just go to their employee with a canceled check and an invoice and request $20 reimbursement per month? And in addition to that, if you have any example written policies that Pat said we should get in place for the university to explain this, if you have any examples of that you could provide would be great.
Okay.
I work here at the university and would love to educate people about this opportunity, but I want to know a little bit more about it.
Oh, that's a wonderful question, and we could talk for at least a half an hour on that subject. So there is no short answer, but I'll try and address a couple of those issues. And if you could, I apologize, I didn't catch your name.
My name's Nikki Fear. Yeah.
Nikki, are you able to take down my email address and shoot me an email?
Yeah, I already did.
Okay, great, because I do want to give you some language that you might incorporate into your policies. So that's wonderful. So there's numerous reasons why an employer might give a bicycle benefit. First of all, if you have employees who are already doing it, and they know that other employees are, they're already biking to work, and they know other employees who take the bus or who drive might have access to pre-tax or company-paid subsidy for having taken the bus, for having driven, they feel like there's maybe a perception of inequity there, simply because they're happening to drive to work, bike to work. Why are they paying a consequence for doing that financially? So there's this issue of equity among employees. So that's definitely one reason an employer would want to do this. Secondly, this is a great
way, the benefit, whether it is a company-paid subsidy or a pre-tax benefit, there are, it's an easy thing to do because there are essentially no tax repercussions for the employer or the employee by offering this. Even for a subsidy, in which case we're talking about the bicycle subsidy. The employer can offer this without radically increasing their taxes and administrative burden. And the employee can as well without having any tax repercussions. They don't have to change their filing in any way. It's quite easy for the employee, provided, of course, that the monthly maximum is not exceeded. So it's an easy way to give employees additional compensation effectively. And so that's nice. It's really useful for those intangibles we spoke about morale, about retention of employees, in general about recruiting. Especially we have here in the Bay Area, it is mandatory that you have biking and some sort of commuter benefit in place because employees shop around and they want to go to the company that has the greenest profile. So I think that's a substantial and important reason to offer something like this. But I do think that there's other reasons as well. And maybe we can continue that kind of over a longer discussion.
Thank you, Steve. Any other questions?
I have a question for Pat. I think you could probably answer this. So I work for, and I'm the director of a local nonprofit, and I want to make the bicycle thing available to my employees. So basically then all I need to do is establish a policy, and then what? Give them, if they substantially use their bicycle or whatever, then just give them $20 a month. That's it, and that's the end of it. If they don't claim it, then that's it.
So I'll just restate the question. I guess just kind of how to set up the bicycle thing. And Steve, I don't know if you know specific examples of how to set up the reimbursement for bicycle expenses or how to kind of monitor that. From the example that I gave, just on their time card, they would mark down, I rode my bike today. And then at the end of the month, you could look and say, okay, substantially for the days you were here, you rode your bike. It's an honor system in a way. And the paycheck, if you're doing it on their time cards, it's another piece of evidence of them doing it. And then at the end of the month, you can just give them $20.
Can I chime in on that?
Yeah. Go ahead.
From our perspective, that actually wouldn't comply with IRS regulations. Just because anytime you give cash to an employee, you have to have substantiation for the purchase, which means essentially you have to collect and store receipts. Because the IRS wants to know that this money, whether it's pre-tax or company subsidy, goes for the intended purchase. So that's why we actually have a voucher that is used for biking. And it's a voucher that can really only be spent at bike shops, places where you maintenance. And actually there's some talk now of also making it available to places where people store their bicycles in the course of their commute. So it's effectively bike parking. Now, again, this is all in flux, but if you are going to give employees cash ever, I am not a tax accountant, but I do strongly encourage you to store receipts for any money you give for any sort of benefit, just so you'll comply with that issue of substantiation.
Thank you, Pat and Steve.
Can I follow up, Nick? That raised a question in my mind.
Is this for Steve? Okay. In light of the technology, I apologize.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Follow-up question then. So the $20 benefit, if you're not using vouchers, you have to have receipts for specific expenses associated with riding your bike to work. Is that how it works?
Is that a question for me?
Sure.
Yeah, that is our understanding, yes. Now, the bike benefit is unusual. It allows also for the purchase of bicycles. So you can actually invest in a bicycle, and that's different from the commuter benefit, for example, the public transit benefit. You can't actually buy a bus. But you can buy a bicycle, and then you can also use this benefit for the maintenance of your bicycle. So the voucher system is a way to make sure that you're compliant with IRS regulations, because when you have a voucher that can only be spent on either the purchase or maintenance of a bike, there's no question that the money, whether pre-tax or subsidy, went for the purchase for which it was intended. So that's the reason I think a lot of people prefer vouchers, is that there's no questions asked. They can never be held to be out of compliance.
Okay, we have time for probably one more question, if there is one. Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I think we'll conclude the session. Thank you to Pat, and thank you very much, Steve. I feel that was very helpful, and I hope each of you received some valuable information as well. We will reconvene at 11:30 in this room for lunch. We hope you can all join us to honor our Transportation Best Practices Award winners for 2008, as well as hear a presentation from Todd Alexander Lippman from British Columbia, unfortunately. But yeah, so we'll see you back here at 11:30, and thank you very much.